Hey, I'm Rob. I'm here to show you how to use WebControl. So I'm going to show you how to use the board feature within WebControl. You can see behind me some circles have been cut out of this MDF piece, and so we're going to go to the software and I'm going to show you how to make an indication that this board has in fact been used, and then when you go to use it next you can avoid cutting the same position. So what you do in your software is you turn on your board. It's got to be blue here and highlighted down below so you can see that there's actually a board there. We go to board, we create new board. So we're going to call this 1/2 inch, or we'll just call this MDF1 or MDF new. How's that? We'll submit that. So there's our new board, but the problem is that I've moved the home position. And so I want the home to be at 0, 0 because that's where it was when I cut this originally. So we go to Action, and then reset home to center. That moves it back where it was, and that's where it's cut currently. So in order to illustrate that on the board, we click board and we hit process G-code. What that does is it indicates within the software that it's been cut. So we process G-code, and you see it makes an outline and says you've already cut there. So then if we wanted to move these over, we could then right click and say, let's define the home over here and move it over. And it looks like that particular one is not going to fit on this particular board. And so perhaps if we flip the board over, it could work. But right now this isn't going to go. So I would have to redo my G-code and move, or I could edit the G-code and remove that first circle. Actually, I would remove the second circle. So that maybe that's what we'll do. So if I edit the G-code and I remove this second circle, then I could probably fit this one circle on there in a couple different places on this particular board. So then we have that other feature. And the cool thing about the board is we save the board as it is, and we can go to within our G-code, we can edit the G-code. So I've got two circles here, and so the first circle, this first line of code is the first circle, then there's the second circle. And so what it does is it cuts this one, then it cuts this one, then it cuts this one, then it cuts this one, and it does each of them 3 times. So it's 12.7 millimeters thick. It's a 1/2 inch, and so I'm cutting it 5 millimeters per pass, so it's a 3-pass cut. The third pass has a notch in it at the top of each of these circles to hold it in place so you can cut it. And so if you look at the G-code, minus 13.5, so I cut through almost a millimeter past where it needs to be, and that way we leave very little spoil. It doesn't ruin the spoil board, but it makes sure that it cuts all the way through. And so if we look at, so there's cuts at -5, -10, and -13.5. And so what I want is I find the one with the high Y value, because that's where it goes up really high. And if I delete the part with the high Y values, like right here, I can delete that. And then I can delete 580, so I can delete that. And then I can delete that. If I submit that, look, it got rid of the other circle. So now I've edited the G-code within there, and I say, well, I think I could fit it up here. So if I right click and I go define home, moves my circle up there, I've got room to print, or sorry, room to cut. And then let's say, oh, magically we cut it. So then you could go into your board and say, well, process the G-code, boom, and it represents that board has been used, and you can then place another one somewhere else and cut. So if we said, wow, that worked pretty well, let's do another circle. We define home there, and will it fit? I don't know. And so you can kind of place your next cut wherever makes sense. And so with WebControl, there's these great features, and this is one in particular that I really like. The other option is to use a tape measure, and knowing the dimensions of your circle, measure from the sled and say, well, will it fit? This board feature is very, very useful to get full use of your boards and not overlap and cut. Now the issue is if you take the board off and you remount it, you need to make sure that it's mounted in the same place or else it will be offset. So very cool features within WebControl, and very useful.